Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. You know, I think you might all be expecting me to be more angry about the Kamikaze album bomb than I actually am. Given the review and how much vitriol I spewed, you probably think seeing it show up all on the Hot 100 would piss me off all the more. And yet, if I'm being brutally honest, in viewing the songs outside of the larger, slightly nauseating context of the album, I reckon that some of them might actually hold up better on their own. And given that it's an album that I covered at length with a lot of yelling, I'm definitely going to streamline as much of the coverage here as I can. But before then, our top 10, where once again, In My Feelings by Drake is holding on to the number one, and it is shakier than ever. Off the top in every category and an airplay free fall, it's only a margins question that keeps it above Girls Like You by Maroon 5 featuring Cardi B, which I expected would take the number one this week thanks to dominant sales and better radio, but it lost that margin on streaming, which keeps it at number two. I Like It by Cardi B featuring Bad Bunny and J Balvin might be in worse shape at number three, as again, it might be better off on radio overall, but it's losing in all categories, including radio, and it is vulnerable. Unfortunately, it's vulnerable to Fifi by 6ix9ine featuring Nicki Minaj and Murda Beats at number 4, which despite radio refusing to touch it, is holding on to passable sales and the streaming and YouTube that will not die. Hell, it rose above Better Now by Post Malone at number 5, which was wavering in all categories all week and is showing some real weakness across the board. And this takes us to our first new top 10 entry, and not one that I expected would smash through at all. Lucky You by Eminem featuring Joyner Lucas at number 6. And what can I say? The streaming's massive, the sales are good, and while the radio is not interested whatsoever in this song, it's Eminem's biggest debut since 2013. And that's not all, because while Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD holds number 7 on weak streaming and radio that's too little too late, we got a second Eminem cut with The Ringer smashing in at number 8, with the sales and streaming to match. I don't really expect either of these songs to last, but those sales numbers do reflect longevity that streaming breakthroughs rarely get, so we'll see. And in Muscled Back, Sicko Mode by Travis Scott down to number 9, even despite the foothold it has in streaming, and even if it's a little bit more versatile across the board and had a good enough week on sales and radio, can't stop Eminem because Taste by Tyga featuring Offset got pushed down to number 10. And when we take a look at our losers and dropouts, folks, it's been a while since I've seen so many otherwise stable songs knocked off the Hot 100. Friends by Anne-Marie and Marshmello, Never Be the Same by Camila Cabello, One Kiss by Calvin Harris and Dua Lipa, Get Along by Kenny Chesney. Those seem mostly confirmed for the year-end list in 2018, but both Moonlight and Changes by XXXTentacion, they were not, and now they're both gone. And the losers list was considerable too. From debuts, we saw Idol by BTS with a remix of Nicki Minaj crash down to 81, and I Am Who They Say I Am by Youngboy Never Broke Again featuring Kevin Gates and Quando Rondo down to 87. But big gains for Quavo on Workin' Me and Side Effects by the Chainsmokers and Emily Warren, those gains were erased, down to 64 and 77 respectively. Then we see songs that lasted a little bit longer seeing year-end positions in jeopardy. Sure, Psycho by Post Malone featuring Ty Dolla $ign, it's safe at 28, and Mine by Bozzy is safe at 43, but Mercy by Brett Young forced to 55, All Girls Are the Same by Juice WRLD down to 75, and I'm Upset by Drake down to 95, not good signs for those songs. And no genres were spared here either. It's Eminem, he crosses over. Country saw losses with Drowns the Whiskey by Jason Aldean and Miranda Lambert at 45, and Life Changes by Thomas Rhett down to 51. Pop saw Breathin' by Ariana Grande slide back down to 56. You Say by Lauren Daigle to 72, and Solo by Clean Bandit and Demi Lovato to 76. Hip Hop had Lean With Me by Juice WRLD to 84. Barbie Dreams of Nicki Minaj go down to 63, expect a rebound with the video. And 1942 by G-Eazy featuring Yo Gotti and YBN Namir to 96. And Travis Scott had a rough week overall with Stargazing falling to 61 and Yosemite going to 79. And as expected, the gains, the returning entries, they were pitiful. Yes, Childish Gambino saw a return for Summertime Magic thanks to the EP. to 100. And the only two gains we got were Happier by Marshmello and Bastille, the 46, because apparently the world can't be without one mediocre Marshmello song charting highly, and Trip by Alameda 32, actually showing the sort of growth that seems somewhat organic. I just kind of wish I liked the songs more, but it's kind of okay to see this here for her second single. But now on to a stacked week of new arrivals, and like all album bomb weeks, I'm gonna try to keep the entries brief. But instead of starting off with Eminem, we have number 97, Hangin' On by Chris Young.
Every word you say, every move you make, I'm hanging on, wondering what's up next, girl, I can't wait. Ain't nothing like spinning you around the room where everyone can see you hanging on to me.
Not gonna mince words here. It was covering Chris Young's last album in 2017 that convinced me I need to create the trailing edge for projects in which I just don't have enough to say. Pure and simple. And I'll freely admit that I forgot this song even existed, and after re-listening to it 4 or 5 times for this episode, nothing's changed. Chris Young sounds like he's on autopilot through this love song that feels painfully basic and seems to have forgotten any sense of groove or punch. And let's not forget the trap progression smuggled into the tinny percussion here. It's sloppily produced, forgettable lyrics, a good singer who's utterly wasting his time. You know what, it's kind of sad that for Chris Young, that could refer to any number of singles. So yeah. Next, number 94, Thunderclouds by Labrinth, Sia, and Diplo. This is one of those collaboration projects I've seen pick up traction in the UK, but I've been a little bit leery about addressing it properly. Most because the combination doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and I wasn't sure what sort of song would be an apt fit for all three artists. Turns out what we get is a slice of retro 60s soul, coasting on with touches of doo-wop that seems a shade bit thinner than it probably should, especially in the bass guitar. And then Sia and Labrinth having shockingly little chemistry with each other before hitting a non-ending in the song. It actually feels really abrupt there. Now, admittedly, I think both Sia and Labrinth could sell this song on their own, a post-fight song trying to rebuild something of the relationship and not be afraid of potential conflicts in the future, but the fusion here feels really awkward and strangely underwhelming, which is what happens when you throw 3 artists with little overlapping territory into the same quasi-supergroup. I mean, it's not bad, but not exactly great either. Take it or leave it. Number 67, Good Guy by Eminem featuring Jessie Reyez.
But we both were jilted a couple of times, so we had a slippery slope to deal with. But still, it gave me hope that we'll get through it together. A severed earlobe mailed to you in an ENVE lope would be dope. But what kind of lengths can you go? Pull a Vincent Van Gogh just to convince a damn hoe.
Let's blow through the Jessie Reyez tracks quickly, shall we? This one's arguably the better one thanks to the slightly quirky JRPG sample and a decent enough percussion groove, but Eminem returning to that toxic relationship, well, it runs dry very quickly, and Jessie Reyez's abortive outro makes the song feel like a fragment, because that's exactly what it is. Next, number 64, Nice Guy by Eminem featuring Jessie Reyez.
You don't lie after the club. You go back home, right?
Desaturated pianos, Jessie Reyez contorting her shrieky vocal tone through even more added pitch shifting, and utterly worthless lyrics from M. Hell, you could convincingly make the argument it's more Jessie Reyez's song than his. And considering it also feels like an undercooked fragment, that's very telling. It also sucks. Next, number 54, Feels Like Summer by Childish Gambino. You know, I'm starting to get the impression that Childish Gambino is kind of outgrowing the Hot 100, at least in its current form, because the chart is more for songs than videos. And more than ever, I'm convinced that Childish Gambino and his team are much more compelling visual stylists than they are in writing coherent songs with a message. This was an issue with This Is America and losing the gunshots from the video, and the more times I go over Feels Like Summer, it kind of feels like a similar case. And the funny thing is that I actually quite like the song here a fair bit. It's got the rattling, listless vibe with the sandy percussion and dreamy acoustics that makes me think that Frank Ocean might have grounds to sue, and the content falls from the same sort of wistful territory that fits for a summer song, at least in my view, and Childish Gambino can sell it effortlessly. But the song also gets this weird brand of poignancy with the video overloaded with references to hip-hop and black culture, and yet even that feels kind of fleeting in its own way, which you kind of expect for a summer song. I don't know, I kind of wish I liked this more than I do, and I could call it great. It's not bad by any stretch, but it's very telling that it took the video going viral for this to gain more traction when it was released all alongside with Summertime Magic. Just saying, it is good though, not sure it's great. Number 49, Venom by Eminem. Ready to snap any momentum, thinking it's time to go get 'em. They ain't gonna know what hit 'em. When they get beat with the... So now we got a song that's about as hilariously stupid as every trailer for the Venom movie thus far, with overblown drums, flattened guitars, and Eminem's pushing his empty posturing through one of the goofiest hooks he's ever used, along with an awkward amount of stuttered lines in his bars. It feels clumsy, and the fact that Eminem ended his album with this, yeah, no, not good. Number 42, Stepping Stone by Eminem. Look, I was on the cusp of really liking the song. From the elegant shimmer behind the blocky beat and how Eminem tiredly peels through old grievances, especially with D12. It reminded me a lot of Like Toy Soldiers, a song from Encore that I genuinely like to this day, completely unironically. But from the female vocals on the hook trying for some brand of lo-fi production that feels really sloppy, to how Eminem can only excuse so much when it comes to his and his label's failure to elevate D12, or even just perpetuate some of the momentum coming out of the mid-2000s? Yeah, no, there's a limit to how many excuses I can tolerate or believe. Number 39, Normal by Eminem.
Why can't you bitches be normal? Always gotta be so extra. Why you always need a lecture? My ex hates to talk, she's a texter. Even when I'm in bed laying right next to her. Wants to get back together. Said not till she gets her act together.
You know, the song would have been tolerable if it wasn't for the fact that I'm fairly certain it was a leftover from Revival that doesn't remotely fit on the album, or that hideous tinny sample that was apparently taken from Little Dragon of all people, or the fact that Eminem has retread this ground both on his own songs and on guest appearances, and no, the beat switch in an attempt to make it quirky doesn't excuse how in the final lines he's saying that folks slept on Revival. No, Em, we really didn't. Number 30, BEBE by 6ix9ine featuring Anuel AA. You know, the more singles I listen to from 6ix9ine in recent months, the less I have any clue what the hell he's doing. I guess he's going for a more sanitized, pop-friendly crossover image to be more positive and draw attention away from the charges and the gang trouble he's been in, but I'm not remotely convinced he's got the versatility as a performer to pull that off. And while Fifi might have been the warning shot, this is the most blatant example to date, teaming up with Anuel AA for a cheap reggaeton song that I'm fairly certain steals the rebrand that the late XXXTentacion was gonna try if he had ever bothered to release I Don't Even Speak Spanish lol. Now, to 6ix9ine's credit, with the entire song being in Spanish, the god-awful writing doesn't quite jump off in the same way. You translate it, and 6ix9ine is quite literally taking your girl, as he literally describes her as a demon in the sack. But it's not like 6ix9ine or Anuel AA project a lot of presence, slathered in auto-tune against this rinky-dink production. In other words, it's just more mediocre than outright awful, and even despite the consistent success of reggaeton crossovers in the mainstream, this one I can only pray won't stick around. Number 24, Not Alike by Eminem featuring Royce the 5'9".
That's how much we have in common. That's how much we have in common. Whoa, that's how much we have in common. We are not alike, there's not alike us on the mic. Yeah.
It's nice to actually get one of the few good songs from Kamikaze here. And while there's a part of me that would love to give all the credit to Royce really stepping up and dropping a pretty damn solid verse, even if his flow can make some really weird turns, there's a lot to like about the song as a whole. For once, Eminem actually sounds comfortable in the triplet flow, and the fusion of the Blockboy JB Look Alive sample with the heavier production that you would typically hear from someone like 6ix9ine after the beat switch, it's solid, it's contemporary, and M sounds good over it. And honestly, for as goofy and over the top as the verse devolves into, the Machine Gun Kelly shots, they were well structured. There's good wordplay there, even if the rest of the song feels a little clumsy. And on that topic, number 23, Greatest by Eminem.
Greatest in the world, no lie, I might be best to ever do it, best to ever do it, best to ever do it. I feel like the greatest. Woke up to honky sounding like me. Never be as good, never be as good. White fetus, white t-shirts, but I'm the greatest.
You know, if you want to convince me you're really the greatest rapper in the world, maybe it's not a good idea to spend a song over this gross, oily production with a really badly mixed hook talking about your mistakes, and then interpolating artists like Kendrick Lamar who have a more credible claim to the crown right now. Also, if you're too big to respond, why are you responding to rappers and critics in this song and then constantly referencing old victories like with Ja Rule, which really, just going off the third verse of the song, which is genuinely great? You shouldn't have to do with that, M. Rest on your laurels. Don't do stuff like this. Or like number 16, Kamikaze by Eminem.
Back and I've just begun. 2017. Back on everyone. Back on everyone. Back on everyone. Kamikaze gonna smash into everyone. Crash like an F-15. Damage already done. Y'all should've let me be. Back on everyone. Back on everyone. Back on everyone. Kamikaze gonna.
Okay, I want names. Who in the nine hells told Eminem that using an interpolation of fact, widely held by Eminem fans to be the worst thing he's ever done? Who said that was a good idea? Look, I get the metaphor. The suicidal nature of kamikaze pilots. Now he's gonna shove his worst mistakes in our faces and crash into everyone. But does anybody really want to hear that? Along with some of Eminem's most forced and pointless references to his own ass? At least when he was trolling his audience on Encore, it didn't feel this excruciating. It had something to talk about. So yeah, the title track, worst song on Kamikaze. I stand by that. Number 12, Fall by Eminem.
Don't follow my faith, don't follow my faith. Don't follow my faith, don't follow my faith. Don't follow.
Okay, more questions. Why the hell is this the lead-off single? Justin Vernon has already disowned the hook that he contributed, and the song feels increasingly petulant as Eminem takes aim at critics, radio personalities, and more interesting rappers who panned his last album. And there are literally so many questionable bars here beyond just the ones pointed at Tyler the Creator that blew up. The Joe Budden domestic abuse lines, the pointless lines thrown at DJ Academics and Charlemagne and Pitchfork, and this is coming from a guy who can barely tolerate any of them. The claim that he discovered 50 Cent in an era where 50 could have gone to any label. The list of artists that he's inspired where you could drop all sorts of asterisks around them. But you know what's the shot at the Grammys that kind of irked me, believe it or not? Because M, you've won 15 of them. And while you've never gotten Album of the Year, and in both 2000 and 2002, there's a credible argument that you should have, although 2000 had him against Radiohead's Kid A, and that's an open question. But his anger seems most directed at the act that nobody's heard of for the loss in 2010. That act was Arcade Fire. The album was The Suburbs. M, that album is better than Recovery. Get the fuck over yourself. Next up, number 8, The Ringer by Eminem.
Break it down, ain't no mistakes allowed, but make no mistake, I'm about to rape the alphabet. I make race some brows if I press the issue just to get the anger out. Full magazine could take staples out. Savage, but ain't thinking about no bank account. But bitch, I'm off the chain like Taylor Brown.
I wish I liked this, because I don't disagree with Eminem's criticism of mumble rappers. I like his flow against the minimalist beat, but going from there, M, if you yourself say that it's a lose-lose situation to reference people by name, why do you still do it on the song? Why do you still claim that critics didn't get Revival when so many of the same mistakes are strewn across Kamikaze? And do you not get that your fury at the current president rather clashes with your disdain for the media that calls you on your shit? Almost like a certain Agent Orange who doesn't hesitate to call out the fake news. No matter how good the flows are, sorry folks, the stuff like that will poison the well for me. But thankfully, we end off with number 6, Lucky You by Eminem featuring Joyner Lucas.
Give me some room, give me the juice. How about the coupe? How about the coupe? How about the shoot? Y'all gotta move, y'all gotta move. Give me the juice. Back on my bullshit, my back to the wall, turn my back on you, all of you finished. Back to these bullets, it's back to the job, put my Mac out and all of you running.
The best song on Kamikaze, and for damn good reason. You could point to Joyner Lucas for some of that. The flow's great, the flexing's on point, and he's got a level of comfort with the beat from Boy Wonder that is thrilling to see. The natural lyrical evolution of what someone like Drake could deliver on that production if he tried. And honestly, I don't have an issue with M flipping a beat that Drake could have used to diss Drake, and then going at the mumble rap crowd again. And I like the references to genuine discomfort for being on top, because it's true. And it kind of undercuts some of the flexing, but for a rap nerd like M looking to come back and try to prove himself, it's something that he can credibly sell. And also rap his ass off, because his flow on the song is nuts and nearly devoid of anything that would really piss me off. Because yeah, it's just a killer hip-hop song. M can still make those. I'm thrilled it was the biggest one with Joyner Lucas. I didn't expect that. Let's pray it sticks around. And yeah, obviously, best of the week. But honorable mention's a little tricky, and yeah, sorry Royce. I think I'm gonna wind up giving this to Feels Like Summer by Childish Gambino. Just a little bit more than not alike. I just think the song has a little bit more longevity for me. Now the worst of the week, it's easy. It's Kamikaze, hands down. With dishonorable mention going to Nice Guy with Jessie Reyez. You get a reprieve this week, 6ix9ine. Don't expect it to last. But next week, the fallout from all this, and you know Machine Gun Kelly is coming. But till then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.